to the Independent Thinking Online Children's Book Festival in partnership with Sue Atkins Book Club, which is full of just wonderful authors writing all sorts of amazing books for children and about children and for parents and to support parents and stuff that's really, really relevant for schools as well, for anybody working with young people who has young people at their heart. And it's about books, and it's about creativity, and it's about wonder and fantasy, so many of these books, and but all with a message, all with something else going on underneath. So they're great books with great stories, but there are ways of making the world better as we read, and this is a good example of that. The Secret of the Golden Cauldron by Jayne Avery, and I've just finished reading this, and I was hanging on. It was like a cliffhanger. I was hanging on right to the end to see what would happen. So Jayne, welcome to the Independent Thinking Book Festival and Children's Book Festival. And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be writing this, and who those people are, who those creatures are lurking behind you.
Well, I started out teaching. I taught at primary and secondary, and I was a behaviour and emotional support teacher for quite a few years, and did the dyslexia diploma. So I sort of had quite a broad experience across the teaching sectors. And when I gave up teaching after 25 years, I retrained as a nutrition consultant and had my own practice for 10 years. While I was teaching, especially when I was dealing with the children with behavioural and emotional difficulties, I became very interested in how food and diet affects their behaviour. And I had a lot to do with the hyperactive children support group, who do an awful lot of work in that area. Then when I retrained, I sort of became back into their sphere. And I was working with somebody on a project to get nutrition taught in schools. So it was called the Food for the Future project. And we were working, I was going to go into school and start talking to the children in assembly about a little boy who didn't eat properly. And then, like Topsy, it grew. And instead of it just being a little story in assembly, it became a whole book.
Wow. So, go on.
No, yeah, go on.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm interested to the link between, and for some maybe the leap between behaviour and nutrition. I mean, we touched on, I think Louise yesterday was speaking about her book, how food shapes our children, or how food shapes your children, and this idea of sort of formative nutrition. And I think maybe a lot of people didn't, when they look at behaviour, they tend to look at what the child is doing, and maybe even look at issues around unmet needs and maybe trauma and communicating something. But the link between behaviour and nutrition isn't, for many people, I don't think, is an obvious one. How did you first think about that, or spot that, or focus on that?
I think the most obvious one is a lot of children drink a lot of fizzy drinks, have a lot of sweet things and a lot of things with additives in. Now, when I first started doing all this and having the interest in it, numbers were just coming in. So it's a couple of decades ago now. People just poo-pooed the fact that additives and colourings could actually affect behaviour. But they do. So that was part of what I was looking into. But there are also other aspects of nutrition, like a lot of the children that I supported that had behavioural problems, and that ranged from having aggression right the way to being school refusers, had something called pyroluria, which I won't go into, but it's you do a urine sample, and they're actually low in vitamin B6 and zinc.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, not just what you eat, and obviously having a good diet is good for you, and you're going to be able to concentrate better if you eat a more vitamin and wholesome diet. and if your bowels are working properly, you know, you're going to feel better and you're going to concentrate. And the idea of hydration, I mean, the thought of having, when I was teaching primary, nobody would have dreamt of allowing children, cheers, to have water in the classroom.
Yeah.
And things have come on a long way.
Yeah. In primary, I mean, I don't, in primary schools, I see, I mean, I've been going into primary schools for nearly 30 years. And yes, I was aware, I was during that period where suddenly, one minute they weren't drinking, next minute it was, they were drinking water. And there was lots of spurious reasons as to plumping up their brains and everything. And if children don't drink water, they spontaneously combust in the middle of literacy. Nobody sort of really knew. But the link then with hydration and just being healthy is clear, and I see that in primary schools. In secondary schools, I still don't see very often the children sitting there with it, unless it's hot, maybe.
Yes.
Having access to the water in that way, and it's such a simple one, isn't it? The water.
It is, yes. And then the 5 a day was coming in when I first started thinking about the book. So with the 5 a day, really, was how the book started, about talking about how fruit and vegetables get their colours. You see, the problem is so many people, adults as well as children, they know vaguely that they need to eat healthily, but they don't really understand why and what the benefits are. And so I've always believed education should be fun. And so I wanted to write a story that had all the facts intertwined, but also the way I liked teaching was to actually discuss things with the children. So each chapter in my book has got its own theme that you could actually stop and talk about. And on my website, I've got extra resources to help people discuss it more, and background information about the bully and about the background information about TG, so that people can actually have a proper discussion with the children.
Yeah, I want to come to the book because it took me by surprise. It wasn't what I was expecting. We'll come to that. You mentioned zinc earlier, and in another interview we did yesterday on another sort of nutritional based one around fussy eating.
Oh, mine's got help my toddler.
Yes, that one, picky eating, I think, and zinc cropped up in there, and in Louise's book as well. And this, if you're not eating the right sorts of things, you're not getting enough zinc. What is the implication? And I know there's an issue with pregnant women and zinc, and they talk about putting zinc into bread and cereals and things. What is the implication for, where do you get zinc from? I'm thinking bananas. And what are the implications for a child who is maybe deficient in zinc? How does that show itself?
Well, I mean, the thing is with zinc deficiency, you probably, you can't see it on me because I haven't got them anyway, but a lot of, when they say it's calcium deficiency, when you've got the little white spots, well, it's actually zinc deficiency.
Wow, okay, right.
And a lot of children, you see that because they're not sort of eating enough the fruit and vegetables and meats and having a proper balanced diet. They'll get it from nuts and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And some children can't eat nuts. But they need to, the whole idea, I think you probably saw in my book, balance and variety.
Yeah. Yes, that's one of the mantras.
Yes. So one of the first things, so for instance, those children with pyroluria have got a specific problem. They have a problem where when they get anxious, the zinc and the pyrolytes, or whatever you want to call them, get the zinc and B6 and flush it out of the body.
Right.
And the zinc and B6 are used for your immune system and also for your general sort of, not anxiety, I can't think of the word, but to keep you sort of happy and on an even keel.
Yeah, okay.
And so they become more anxious if this is all being flushed out.
Okay, so zinc and B12 help keep us sort of balanced and the well-being.
Yes.
Say it again? Yeah.
B6, yeah.
B6, yeah, okay. And then when we lose that causes, that imbalance causes the things that can lead to anxiety.
And then they feel bad, and then they lose their tempers, or they become very anxious. Yeah. In fact, what I found, I sort of did my own little study, what I found was the children that came out with the highest level of the pyrules, or sorry, I can't pronounce it properly now.
That's okay.
They were the children that were actually more likely to be the school refusers, or the more timid ones, the ones that sat with us up in the Senko's room at lunchtime.
Wow.
So it was, and I also became more interested because I discovered that one of my children had pyroluria.
Wow.
And you know, got her on the big zinc and B6. She didn't really show that much, but she was always anxious, didn't like change and all that sort of thing.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's sort of reassuring that those feelings, that anxiety, that school refusing, the behaviour can be addressed, not fixed, but can be addressed through the food, as well as other forms of support.
Well, I mean, just as an aside, one child was brought to me. She was being sent to see an ed psych because she was school refusing, because she kept saying that she had bubbles in her tummy. And they thought she was just saying that because she didn't want to go to school. But long story short, she was a celiac.
Okay.
But nobody had thought to go down that line. And as soon as they cut out all the gluten grains, she stopped having the bubbles in her tummy. She stopped feeling so ill, and she was fine.
Yeah. So it's worth looking at the nutrition angle as well as the other things as well. I think
exactly.
That's so important. And so leading into the book then, and I picked up the book thinking it's going to be just a children's storybook, just a fantasy book. And then as I got into it, I realised that no, there's more to it going on. So sort of lead into the book. Tell us about the book and what it's about.
Yeah, well, TG, this little fella here, is a little boy who doesn't eat properly. He has problems at home. His parents are split up. He has a temper, and he knows when he's going to lose his temper, his ears go red, which actually is what a little boy that I used to support in school actually had happen. He gets bullied because he has not learning difficulties as such, but you know, he's got a little bit of dyslexia, and he doesn't eat properly, so he's a bit he's not as active as a lot of the other children, and he gets bullied, and when he gets bullied he loses his temper, and one of the crystal lady in the book represents the white light from the sun, which then splits in the spectrum to become the colours of the rainbow. And so the rainbow warriors in the book represent the colours of the rainbow that actually give the fruit and vegetables their colours.
Lovely.
And each of the colours of the fruit and veg give you different properties.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've heard of keratin in a carrot is orange, and that helps with your eyesight. And, you know, the chemicals within that do help with the retina. So because TG is such a typical example of a boy who is affected by not eating very well, he is chosen by Granny Genome, who represents the human genome, to go on a mission over the rainbow and discover the secret of the golden cauldron. And so he goes over the rainbow with Granny Genome, finds the golden cauldron, which he thinks is going to be full of gold, and finds it full of fruit and veg.
Yeah.
So he then gives it a good old kick, so it goes spinning around, and out come the rainbow warriors, who then take him on his mission. And he's to save the crystal lady. And he's given a card with a picture of her. And if it starts to fade, he knows he's made the wrong choice or a silly choice. And if it starts to come back, then he knows he's doing okay on his mission. Mm-hmm. And he meets various people along the way that are going to try and persuade him to do things that he knows he shouldn't really do.
It's about making good choices. The mission is about making good choices with regard to eating.
Yes, making good choices, building self-esteem, standing up for yourself. So, for instance, that's Candy Floss. She tries to get him to eat lots of sweets, and he learns his lesson there because he does eat too many and he makes himself very sick. But the sort of the story there is, you don't, he says, all right, I'll never have another sweet. Well, no, that's not, of course you can have sweets, you've just got to be sensible about it. And in the chapter on sugar, which is the candy floss chapter, she's got false teeth and she's got diabetes.
Yes.
So there's a way of the teacher can stop and talk about what diabetes is, why it occurs, and there's things on the website to help them with that.
Because it's quite graphic as well. It's like when he's sick and there's a frog's leg comes up as well. And then at one point she's sort of injecting herself with a needle. You don't pull any punches when you're describing, and some of the other ones as well, how they're, you know, these workers in the sweet factory or whatever, they have to keep resting all the time because of the energy levels. It's quite in a bit sort of Roald Dahl, that sort of way. It's quite sort of yuck.
Yes.
But I get the point that, you know, that's for a reason. You're not sugarcoating the idea that too much sugar is not a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the Rainbow Warriors. This is Scarlet. She represents red. And there's one for, well, 5 of the colours.
Yeah.
And each of them take him and give him different advice as he goes on through, which is, as you know.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we've got the fast food fiend, who I haven't got him with me. I left him behind. He's sulking a bit, but...
too fat to carry, is he?
No, he's been on a bit of diet because he's the fast fruit fiend now.
Oh, he's okay. He's moved on, hasn't he? I forgot that.
Moved on, and he's very much in favour of fruit now. So he's doing much better than he was. But the idea about this corporate bullying, because you don't just get bullying in school, you get the idea of people being really nice to you because they want you to do something that you know is not really good for you. And the whole idea is each of these people, at first they're really nice, and then when TG starts to say, no, but I don't want to do that, they get quite nasty with him.
That's what I like about the richness as I was reading it. It's not just a sort of a moralistic story about make sure you eat the right things. There's a lot of eat the right things messages in there, but it's linked to, like the ones behind you over your right shoulder, you know, standing up for yourself, his journey of developing his confidence, understanding why he couldn't concentrate, why, and it's got to be one of my favorite names for a teacher, why Mrs. Wolfbaiter was picking on him so often. And it just, the food, understanding the link between the food and the self-esteem and the confidence and the being able to play sports and being able to just stand up for himself a little bit more, that it's all sort of woven together really nicely.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Wolfbaiter is based on one of my primary school teachers, Mrs. Wolfgarten.
Wolfbaiter is such a great name.
Who used to scare the life out of us all, but there we go. So I decided to change it a bit. and now I've mentioned it.
Well, she'll never know. And the other thing I thought was really clever was, well, we're going to run out of time. Towards the end was the way that he was tricked by the pirate and given a menu, and he like chose the things that he thought were great. And the pirate is working backwards. Retless. Retless. That's the one. I was reading it, trying to read it backwards. And he was tricked. He thought he'd made all the right choices. There we go. With fish cakes and blueberry desserts and everything. But he was conned. And I thought that was really powerful. Just briefly, just explain that, and then we'll find out more about where we can get hold of you.
Yes, basically one of my bugbears is that children's menus call themselves children's menus, but they're far less healthy than the adult menu. So I really strongly feel that children should be offered a smaller portion of the adult menu with the fruit and the veg and everything, whereas the children's things, I mean, as it's coming to the fore at the moment, so many junk foods have got things in them and additives that actually make you addicted to them. And, you know, I was having a conversation with my 8-year-old granddaughter the other week, and she said, oh, I'm allowed to have sweets as a treat. And I said, isn't it funny how we call things that are actually bad for us a treat? I mean, she understands it all, but, you know, because she's been brought up with the book and Candy Floss. But it is weird, isn't it, how we give ourselves a treat with things that aren't any good for us.
No, so we need to start challenging all those the language that we use and the way that we treat food and our approach to food. And this book just seems a really just a lovely, a creative way into doing that without being moralistic, but just allowing the lad goes on the journey and he takes the reader on the journey with him.
Yes,
which is nice.
Yeah, and he becomes the phyto-powered kid. And what I dream of is that other children now, when the book's being read with them, that they become phyto-powered kids.
Yeah.
It becomes something a bit like the modern day Popeye.
with the spinach, yeah.
And he'll be more rounded with all the different colours.
How can we've run out of time, how can we, so we've done the deal with the roving bookshop so people can get access to the book via that way?
No, I'm not on the roving.
Oh, you're not on there? Okay, so for other books, that's fine, but for your book, Jayne, how can people get hold of you? Do you have a website? Are you on social media?
It's on Amazon. It's, print as you go.
Yeah.
And on my website, jayneavery.com.
Okay, and are you on Twitter? Are you venturing into social media?
Jayne E. Avery, and on Instagram, Help Children to Succeed.
Yeah, nice. Again, that link between the food and the behaviour and the success and the self-esteem and the confidence. Lovely. It's been fantastic speaking to you. Thank you. Thank you for the book. Thank you very much for instructing me about how to eat better for myself, my well-being. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.